I think it's important that you as an investor, you as the owner, stay involved, at least in a weekly update on the business strategy, execution, and where we are, and if changes need to be made. And that should really come from your asset manager.
Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. If you're enjoying the show, do me one little favor. It's really a favor for you. Leave us a rating and review. Give us some feedback on the show, what you love about it, but also anything that can work harder for your investing goals. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode and share it with a friend. Tell somebody else to subscribe as well. Listen, we got a great show today. We're going to be talking to Julie Blank. Hey, Multifamily Insights listeners, if you're looking to invest beyond multifamily, make sure you check out the Invest Beyond Multifamily Conference this fall, Wednesday, October 11th through Friday, October 13th, here in Cincinnati, Ohio. Listen, you're going to learn how to invest in non-residential commercial real estate and master the art of scaling your commercial real estate business. Now, this event is being hosted by Ash Patel, guest on the show, and he's featuring great speakers such as Nate Barger and Joe Fearless. If you want to learn how to invest beyond just multifamily, be sure to check out this event October 11th through the 13th. All you have to do is go to investbeyondmultifamily.com/fall-conference. Again, that's investbeyondmultifamily.com/fall-conference. Julie Blank joined New Standard Equities in 2017 and serves as Chief Operating Officer. Now, with nearly 20 years of multifamily management and investment consulting experience, she leads the firm's corporate operations as well as multifamily operations, including capital projects and asset management. Let's welcome to the show, Julie Blank.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. It's
Absolutely.
great to be here.
Julie, I went over your bio at a very high level. Why don't you take 2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps?
Yeah. Yeah, as you stated, I'm currently the Chief Operating Officer for New Standard Equities. I've been there since 2017. The company's been in place since 2010. And I run all the operations, all the back office, human resources, IT. We have asset management. We're vertically integrated. So we have construction management, asset management, the property management side. So I run all of those. And prior to joining New Standard Equities, I had my own consulting firm for developers, investors, operators in the industry. Did that for, I don't know, six years or so before I joined New Standard. And then prior to that, I had worked for companies in the industry in different positions for Carmel Partners, Alliance Residential, a Greystar, the Irvine Company. So really, that's kind of where I cut my teeth and kind of got my pedigree in the industry. And then prior to that, which feels like a completely different lifetime, I was an senior auditor for Arthur Andersen public accounting firm. I have my degree in accounting, got my CPA, and then out of college started working for Arthur Andersen and down Cincinnati there. Yeah, and then right now I'm also sitting on the board of a cystic fibrosis foundation called Claire's Place Foundation. And then I'm a volunteer mentor for a creative writing and mentoring organization for young girls called Right Girl Organization. So all of that keeps me pretty busy. And plus I got 2 college-age kids. So that's a little bit about me.
I love it. Love that all that experience that you just shared, and someone who's got Midwest ties, born in Louisville, and went
Yeah.
to University of Cincinnati, so kindred spirit there. Let's talk
Yeah.
about some of that experience, right? Because I think it's interesting listening to your career, right? Started off really in accounting, kind of transitioned into the real
Mhm.
estate, consulting space, managing projects and things like that, and now you're in this role where you oversee really everything when it comes to the operational side, from asset management to property management to construction management. We'll dig into that in a moment. But talk to me about that transition, going from kind of public accounting and working for this public accounting firm to the real estate industry. What did that transition look like? And what were some of the things that you had to grow or learn or develop in order to be successful?
Sure. As much as my personality was not aligned with accounting, I always say I'm an accountant by trade, but not by personality. It certainly was a great foundation to build my career on. When you look in hindsight, um, I did that for about 5 years with Arthur Andersen, and I was on the audit side. That exposed me to a lot of different companies, from industrial to real estate companies to manufacturing and anything in between. And you're talking to, the chiefs of the company, the chief operating officers, the CEOs, the CIOs, the CFOs, of course. So you're just really learning how to communicate, how to ask the right questions to get the information that you need, um, and just really getting exposed to different industries and fields and policies and procedures and how companies run things. Of course, in addition to just knowing numbers and knowing accounting, and audit is very forensics. So I really enjoy that piece of it. But again, it just wasn't aligned with my personality. So when I was moving from Ohio to Arizona, it's like, I want to do something different. I want to get into operations, which I felt was more aligned with my personality. And, as an accountant, no one would hire me to do anything other than accounting. So I ended up working for the first company in real estate, who was Alliance Residential, and they were just a year old. The partners had broken off from other large real estate firms. And I grew up with them for about 6 or 7 years. And just, I think, based on my background, um, being organized, being detailed, being inquisitive, um, being self-motivated, and just kind of perseverance and grit. I didn't know anything in this industry, but it was just motivated to teach myself and to learn. And I was in 5 or 6 different positions with that company, which really set a good foundation for me in this industry as well. But the transition was relatively easy, I think, based on my accounting background. And like I said, just being exposed to other businesses and just being able to ask the right questions and being okay. I mean, I was young. This was 20 years ago. Not being embarrassed that you don't know. You just have to ask questions, right? And it's okay if you don't know. And that's something I wish I would have learned earlier. But yeah, it's just asking questions and having some grit to get through.
Were you intentionally looking to work for a real estate firm, or is that just the opportunity that presented itself?
It is the opportunity that presented itself, interestingly enough. I mean, I actually started with the company as a property accountant, and um, and did that for 3 months until the owner of the company came to me and said, "Look, we want someone with a different background to really run our operations, someone that hasn't kind of gone up from a leasing agent to a manager, regional manager, and running operations." Okay, and those were the days when they just literally gave you keys and said, "Here's your 5 properties. Good luck."
Figure it out.
So I learned through, the hard knocks and really what not to do. And, I learned the hard way through some of it, probably through most of it. But again, I think once you're in the business, I've always said real estate is, to me, is like, it's like Hotel California, right? You can check out, but you can never leave. I've tried a few times to get out, and I just can't. Once you gain so much knowledge and stuff, it's hard to leave. Plus, it's cyclical, and so it can be exciting. It's got its ups and downs, and I'm sure we'll talk about the challenging times we've been facing most recently. But I haven't found anything else that is as exciting as real estate, and quite frankly, as that could be as lucrative as it can
Yeah.
be, and offers a lot of potential and possibilities for you, whether you're an investor actively or passively, and whether you have $1 or $1 million. You know.
Yeah. I think what's really interesting is that a lot of times people focus on the acquisition side, and it makes sense, right? Because if you don't have a deal, the first thing you got to learn is how to get that deal. But
Right.
for those folks who have assets under management right now or have properties, let's talk about how to be an effective, operational person, right? How to be an effective operator. You all manage, asset management, project management, property management, construction management. There's a lot of different ways that
Mhm.
you're, overseeing the way operations happen. So let's
Mhm.
start with property management. Are there one or two things that you do or that are a little bit different than what maybe your typical property management company would do to ensure you're delivering strong results for all of the key stakeholders?
Yeah, I would say that what we've really found that's worked, and we've been doing it for the past few years, is we've centralized a lot of the responsibilities that were done on site at the properties. what we could take on and centralize in the corporate office we have, because there's less distractions now on your on-site team, mostly your office team, that allows them now to focus on resident retention, to focus on prospect building and tours, and the marketing window, and really being available for the day-to-day on-site operations of the property that you need, and you can't do that from the corporate office. So what I mean by that is the things like the financial reporting, all of the kind of the bookkeeping functions, a lot of all the communication to the investors, right, is all done from the corporate office. So on the property management side, we really, again, just try to not distract them from what they actually do best, and that's resident relations and sales. So often in property management, our industry puts more and more other responsibilities like bookkeeping and accounting and marketing and advertising and even on-site construction management for renovations and stuff that they're not experts in, and that's not aligning with their qualities and traits for success.
If you're an investor like myself, what questions should you ask your property management company, assuming you use third party? What questions could you ask to understand a little bit more about how that back end operation actually works?
Yeah, I would ask, what does their structure look like? How are their on-site teams staffed? And how is the corporate office staffed to support property management? And then really get granular and say, what are the day-to-day responsibilities of the on-site team? Because again, you don't want them distracted from adding that value to the asset that's important to the investor, and making sure that on the corporate side with the property management team, that there's support there for the on-site team. Property management is not a lucrative business. It's a very small profit margin, and so a lot of companies run thin too. So it's making sure that there's enough resources to support the on-site team for that success and that increase in the value that the investors are looking for.
Let's talk about construction management, because I think this is one of the areas that is always a challenge for investors, right? You kind of have a budget. That budget is never exactly what you thought it was going to be. Sometimes
Yep.
for the best, but if there's some
Mhm.
changes, but usually it's the other way. Particularly in recent years, where the cost of lumber and other materials has gone up beyond what people estimated. What are some of your best practices for construction management?
It's really first being tuned in to your market and your demographics, and understanding what is valued by the resident. The investor, the owner, the operator, we may walk in and go, oh, we need new cabinets and countertops, and we'll do stainless steel appliances, and let's try to figure out how to install washers and dryers in the units. When you might be completely disconnected, that demographics actually is okay not having a washer and dryer, but they certainly would like to have new cabinets and maybe newer appliances, right? Or quite frankly, they don't want carpet, they just want vinyl plank throughout. That's the first step, is knowing what the resident values and not over improving, because you really want to match every dollar that you put into your renovation to what a resident is truly um, willing to pay and appreciate that value that you put into it. And you might find out that you do a few test units, right? You might go in and do a couple of different or three different renovations, and you have a certain value that you want to achieve, and then you figure out what the market wants, right? What do they desire? So it's not a plug and play. You do have to really stay fluid in the renovation program that you believe you put in place in the beginning. And it's okay and it's knowing that it's okay to make that change and say, maybe I was wrong, but you're going to repurpose those funds and still get that rental bump that you're looking for. It just may not be in the actual scope that you had initially started out with.
Yeah, when you're looking at that, is there a rule of thumb or kind of return metric that you're using to say, hey, if we spend X amount of dollars, we expect to see this amount as far as return?
Yeah, we're looking anywhere from like 12 to 20% is what we would prefer on our return on cost.
All
Yeah,
right. So you kind of take that, you've got that number going in there. So you know if you're not going to at least hit a 12 to 20% return,
right.
you're not going to spend the money on that upgrade or that renovation. So I think that's a great insight for our listeners, just to understand like how to look at your budget and how to make certain decisions based on that number. Because if you're not going to hit a certain return metric, then it's going to be harder to do that. What I want to point out too, though, is that because your team is vertically integrated, that 12 to 20% may be a little bit different than what they're looking for because, if you're going to pay contractors and you got to pay third party property management company, you may need a larger return in order for those numbers to work. Whereas, for your team, for NSE, 12 to 20 may be sufficient because you're vertically integrated. You're not paying a bunch of overhead costs and things like that for other aspects. So, just still, nonetheless, great insight just for people to think about how to look at their renovation budget.
Yeah, absolutely good point.
Yeah. So that's on the renovation side. How about managing the timelines, right? It seems like, many projects, people's timelines, they fall a little behind. And that's obviously a key component to construction management is obviously getting the materials in and doing the work, but also trying to stay close to the timeline as possible. What are some tips you have to manage that?
Well, good question in a difficult time. It was much easier before COVID, and it was much easier before what's happening in our market with, interest rates, inflation, and supply and demand issues. Um, you know, in this current environment, because this is one I think we're all obviously currently operating in and will be for a while, it's knowing that like interior renovations or even exterior renovation plans, due to some maybe financial constraints, are going to take longer. So we, being a value add company, we typically hold properties, 3 to 5 years, right? That's where we make our money, is on, the disposition. But because of what's happened in the market since COVID, through today, we are now looking to, just refinance some of our properties, recap, whatever, financial instrument we can do in order to give us more time. So now our 5-year plan, it might be 8 years, to build that value and to catch up on our interior renovations and stuff. Um, so I think it's more of trying to figure out, again, even though you have a plan, you may have to make some changes. And you have to be fluid with it. And of course, if you have lenders who have certain requirements, you've got to be able to have those conversations with lenders about why you may not be achieving some of the milestones, for your renovation projects. Um, and we always try to have good relationships with our lenders. I think that's, extremely important. Obviously, a good relationship with investors too. But it's the lenders that, that hold the funds too for the renovations and expect certain milestone performance. So I think it's a lot of communication as well, just making sure that there's transparency, if you're not going to meet it, but knowing that if there's a way to hold on to that asset to continue to achieve your business plan is important.
Yeah, I think that that helps, right? Understanding the exit options there, working with your lenders, working with your
Mhm.
investors, recognizing that hey, what may have been a 3 to 5 year hold initially may end up being a 5 to 8 year hold now, based on where the market environment changes. So it's really good to note. In terms of the actual construction, right? So let's say we're going in and you're going to renovate 50 units. You obviously have a timeline and a budget associated with that. What are the things that you're doing to kind of help manage that construction timeline?
Sure. Um, I think again, because we are vertically integrated, it really helps because we collaborate a lot with all of our different divisions, from property management, asset management, and construction management. So on a weekly basis, we call them revenue management meetings or calls, but really it's more than just talking about the rents. It's really talking about the availability of units, what's coming up on notice, what's been renovated, what it hasn't been renovated as it relates to your availability, the need of occupancy, right? Sometimes you're balancing, well, we need cash flow over renovating units, right? And we need to flip units a little bit quicker. So we really talk about all those. But the timing is really making sure that when the renovation starts, that your construction management team and your maintenance team's working together, because your construction management team, whether you third party it or it's in-house, they don't turn a unit over completely ready for a move-in. You have to be collaborative with your maintenance team, because the maintenance team has to come in and do certain scopes and do their maintenance piece of the unit turn. So it's coordinating with them to get in there while the renovation's taking place, to shorten that time period, because for every day you're renovating, as we know, you lose money, right? You got that vacancy loss. So the more that you can collaborate and get your teams working together to turn the unit as quickly as possible, obviously helps with that return on cost as well, and helps get that unit, cash flowing again. So we really try within 30 days, because sometimes we have some very heavy lifting in our interior units, but we try to get everything, all of our units completed within 25 to 30 days upon, initial vacancy, until it's ready for a move-in. And also try to pre-lease it at the same time, again, to shorten that vacancy loss window. I don't know if that answered your question as far as
Yeah,
timing.
that helps for sure. So I think from an insight standpoint, my takeaway is the first thing is collaboration, making sure that the teams, all parties involved, all stakeholders, they're at the table, they're talking through the
Mhm,
plan. How many
mhm.
units do we have vacant? How many are coming up for,
Right,
renewal or maybe vacant?
right.
And then where are we at with the renovation of various units? By having the team talk about these things, you can
Mhm,
better manage that process, having the maintenance team handle those punch out list items, right? So
right,
the things that the constructions or the contractors don't do, you want to
right,
make sure your maintenance guys are ready to go in there, finish that up so this unit is move-in ready, and then making sure that your leasing team actually has it pre-leased. If they're not showing that specific unit,
right.
they're showing comparable units so that, once that unit is done, a resident's ready to move in
Mhm.
and you can go ahead and start collecting rent. That's going to shorten your vacancy time frame and also drive revenue. And I would say I think the one challenge everyone may have on this, when you're not vertically integrated and having everyone at the table, now you're kind of playing that quarterback position as the investor or that asset manager. So talk to us about that. Like, who's calling the shots? What does that look like in terms of getting that contract in the room, getting the property management team in the room, getting the maintenance guys in the room, so that everyone understands what the time frame is and how this project is going to move to make sure that you're being very efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been in other companies where we weren't vertically integrated, and having to go through that process that you just mentioned. It's really the asset management team, or the asset manager, however big your company is. But it's the asset manager who's really responsible for executing the business plan, whether you're vertically integrated or not. And so they're the ones that need to make sure that they are bringing the construction management team on board, and the property management team, third party, right? That, they understand the timing, and there needs to be consistent meetings weekly, or more than that, depending on the volume in which, you're working with. But it truly is the asset manager, because they are the ones that know the business plan. They know the timing of what has to take place, and they have to be responsible for bringing the teams together and working collaboratively to execute the business strategy, to execute, the value add, and the investment strategy for the asset.
Yeah, really great tips. I appreciate you sharing that. You've seen this on both sides, right? Being vertically integrated and also working at firms where you weren't vertically integrated, and it does come down to that asset manager. For your team at NSE, obviously as a COO, you've got a number of responsibilities. So I assume you're not in every single one of these meetings and calls. Just talk to us about what it takes to be a great asset manager.
Well, I was an asset manager in a prior life as well. So, and actually being the COO and the size of the company we are, we're 2,000 units. So I still am very involved, but not in a micromanagement way. What I enjoy when I say these revenue management calls, where we bring construction management, asset management, property management together, I'm involved in those weekly, because that's really an opportunity for me, even if I don't speak, it's an opportunity for me to understand what's happening at all the properties. And we talk about the market. So we have markets. We're in northern and southern California, and we're in the state of Washington, and we're in different markets in those two states as well. So it really allows me to understand quickly what's happening in the markets and where we operate. what's happening with our business plan, which asset management is going to discuss during those meetings. And then, how's our renovation strategy going? Do we need to make any executive decisions on changing the scope because we're finding we're not getting that return on cost we need? So those are really the meetings that have to take place on a regular basis. And someone at an executive level should be a witness to that, because you need to be aware sooner than later, because turning a property around or undoing something that's been done is like turning a ship, right? It's not something that you can just change and undo and feel like you're going to get that impact immediately. So I think it's important that you as an investor, you as the owner, stay involved, at least in a weekly update on the business strategy execution and where we are, and if changes need to be made. And that should really come from your asset manager.
No, I love that. You talked about staying involved, even if it's at a high level, to understand how things are working, to get that information so that you can make decisions quickly if something's not working, or you can give different feedback, and
Mhm.
try different things out. I'm going to ask a different question when we get to our round of insights momentarily, but out of the various properties and the projects that you've managed, has there been a challenge or something that was really difficult that you had to figure out that took a little bit more time than you would have anticipated?
Yeah, I think it's availability of information to make strategic decisions. And I'll clarify that by saying, earlier we were talking about how your on-site teams really should be customer service focused and sales focused. So getting data from the on-site team can be challenging, from first just getting it, second that it's accurate, um, in order for us to make decisions. And we needed to make them quickly, right? So what we ended up discovering is that what was so important for us is having an analytical tool that helps us when we're all in the room together look at the right data, be confident in the integrity of the data in order to make the right decisions. I say right decisions loosely. Sometimes we make the wrong decision, even with the right data. But our percentage is much greater now of making the right ones. But I think that for us, it took us a little bit longer to get there. And we've been working with a third party company who's really been creating this analytical tool for our industry that's absolutely amazing. And I'm happy to share that if people want to reach out to me. But it's really allowed us to have immediate access to the right information with confidence in the information to make all decisions. And I include the property management side of that, the construction management side of that. We have all this information now readily available to make decisions. And there's those property management softwares, right, that we're all used to having. And it's data. You can pull reports, but what it doesn't give you is that analysis that is readily available that you can make quick decisions. Before we were taking all these different reports out of the property management system and putting it into our own Excel spreadsheet and then filtering and sorting, and all that's gone. So we've saved a lot of hours in doing and preparing. And now we take that time to really make strategic decisions that impact the value of the asset.
No, I love that. I appreciate that. I mean, data is so important. And I would say too, one thing I always warn people with is, um, the data always looks backwards though, right? So it's meant to inform going forward. But I see too often people ignore the forward-looking portion of that and just look back and say, "Oh, okay, this happened last month or last year. We
Right,
should expect that again." And they're not factoring in the different circumstances that were impacting the things that they're seeing in those numbers. So
right.
it's always a challenge. It's always part art, part science to figure out some of those things. But that's why you want to have smart people who can sit down, break it down, get
Yep,
those right tools and analytics, and help you make informed decisions.
yep.
For those folks who want to learn a little bit more about you and your company, they can check out New Standard Equities and learn a little bit more. What's your email, Julie?
It's J blank, my first initial last name, so JBLANK at newstandardequities.com.
There we go. So we'll make sure we link to that in our show notes so you can reach out to Julie there. Right now, we're going to move on to our round of insights. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to grow as a multifamily investor, you have to spend more time with other multifamily investors. And an easy way to do that is to join our apartment investing mastermind group today. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the mastermind button. Now, as a part of this group, you'll get access to expert trainings, group coaching calls, industry news and updates, as well as all of our webinars and workshops, including our 3-hour workshop on raising capital. Again, if you want to be around other multifamily investors that can help you scale your portfolio today and grow your network, make sure you're a part of the Apartment Investing Mastermind. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the Mastermind button today. All right, give me a failure or an apparent failure that sets you up for later success.
So, not getting buy-in from my team and employees early on, especially the employees that the decision that you're making impacts the most. So employees want to know that their voice is heard. And so being able to obtain as much input and data as possible to make the informed decision needs to come from those employees. Whether or not you get the buy-in and use their advice, they feel empowered because they were given a voice, and that garners respect.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
I think LinkedIn has been a great resource for us from a branding perspective, an exposure perspective, for capital and investors, and then recruiting.
All right. Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
The Bible.
All right. What's a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals?
I spend at least 2 to 3 hours every morning in silence and solitude. So before the sun even comes up, I'm up 2 to 3 hours. And I do that because it's before the rest of the world wakes up and interferes with my mindset.
So like meditation, or just are you doing something else?
I do meditation, I read, I work out, and then sometimes I just sit and let my thoughts come to me clearly.
All right, I love it. Give me your number one insight on being an effective asset manager.
Consistency, knowledge, collaboration, and buy-in.
There we go. All right, we're going to lighten the mood. You're out there in LA. Great food options all around. Give us your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
My house, because my husband is an amazing cook. He's a great chef. There's no reason to go anywhere else. So
there you go. Great option right there. Julie, you gave us a lot of great information. I appreciate you talking about kind of your journey coming from a finance and accounting audit background to getting into real estate, learning all sides of the business from an operational standpoint, from property management, construction management, project management, asset management, and then what it takes to really be effective in each of those different roles. Also giving us some insights on things that we can all do to be more effective, questions to ask those property management companies to make sure we're getting the most out of that relationship, and a couple rule of thumbs when we're looking at some of these numbers and making decisions on our renovation plans. Again, if anybody wants to learn more, you can go to newstandardequities.com, or you can email Julie at jblank@newstandardequities.com. Julie, I want to thank you again for being a great guest and coming to Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying in touch with you, and I hope you have a great day.
my pleasure. Thank you, John. You too.